Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this evening, this morning, this afternoon, this somewhere, wherever you are in the world. This is the launch for the Consilience virtual exhibition, which will hopefully present a smorgasbord of art and poetry that aims to explore the topic of medicine. I'm just going to talk very briefly about myself and about Consilience to start with, and then we're going to get going. So, hi everyone, my name's Sam. I am a scientist, a poet, and both of these things, neither of these things. And I help to run Consilience, which is the world's first science and poetry peer-reviewed journal. And basically, we set it up as a way to create a space for people to explore the liminal spaces between the sciences and the arts, and to hopefully create something that's supportive and that enables people to share the boundless creativity that they have, no matter what discipline that they're in. So that's Consilience, which is the poetry and the science side of things. But as part of Consilience, we also have a branch called Consiliate, which my colleague Louise Arnold runs. And in organizing Consiliate, Louise has also put together this exhibition. So I'm going to pass you over to Louise to talk to you a little bit about Consiliate, and then Louise is going to pass back to me, and I'll say a couple more words before launching the exhibition.
Awesome, thanks, Sam. Thanks for the introduction and welcome everyone. This is a really exciting time because it's our first virtual exhibition. And so as Sam mentioned, I'm one of the co-curators of Consiliate. And so we're a branch of Consilience that deals with audiovisual arts. So we thought it would be a fantastic idea to bring these two worlds together, poetry, audiovisual arts, and create this exhibition for you, and then create these additional links between the poets, the artists. And it was also fantastic to discover that some of the visual artists were also poets, and some of the poets were also visual artists. And I think you'll see that throughout the exhibition as well. I hope you enjoy it, and yeah, look forward to hearing from the artists and the poets involved. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Louise. So I'm just going to quickly put a couple of links into the chat. So for people who don't know, which I'm sure you already will, here is the, I'm just putting into the chat the link for our journal, Consilience. Please check it out, see some of the issues that are involved, think about submitting to future issues as well. And then I'm also going to put into the chat now a link to the actual exhibition, which is run on a program called kunstmatrix. And it's an amazing space for people who are interested in hosting virtual exhibitions. And they've been incredibly generous to us and let us basically try out the space for free to see if we like it and if we enjoy it. And we think it's amazing. So it's going to be slightly strange, but trust me, I think it's going to work, right? I've sent everyone the link so you can go in and you can check it out for yourself. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen where I'm going to take you on a virtual tour through the exhibition. Louise and myself are going to do so. And as we go through the virtual exhibition, we're going to invite those artists and poets who have been able to join us to speak a little bit about their artwork or their poem. Alternatively, maybe read their poem. For those artists who've not been able to join us, what we'll do is we've got a little statement that we'll read, or I'll read a poem on their behalf. So I'm already apologizing in advance of the fact that the way that I read the poetry will definitely not do justice to how brilliant it is. So apologies in advance for that. So we'll do that. Louise and I will then just basically give people permission to unmute the artists and the poets. So just bear with us as we're doing that. If we forget to do so, just put in the chat saying, Sam and Louise, I'm on, unmute me, and it'll go. So be patient. Bandwidth seems to be holding okay. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to share my screen with you all now, and we're going to enter the exhibition. So when you go into the exhibition, you'll see that Louise has put together this very nice information sheet, which just explains a little bit about the exhibition. So medicine is the science and practice of the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of disease. We as humans are at the center of this operating theatre, probing and being probed, looking for ways to cope with disease, aiming for discovery, yearning for recovery, struggling for security and choice. This Consilience exhibition takes you on a journey that explores these themes through poetry and visual art, to share perspectives on a topic that permeates through every facet of our daily lives. So, and again, if things go a little bit slow and stuff, it's me being a bit silly rather than the actual exhibition, which is very beautifully handled. So we're going to start off here with two pieces from Wendy Lowe, both an art piece and also a poem. Louise, am I right in thinking that you're going to be reading a statement for Wendy Lowe about the art piece, or is Wendy actually here?
Wendy is here, I think.
I'm here.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Oh, great, Wendy's here. Thanks, Wendy. So Wendy, please feel free to talk about your piece. 2 to 3 minutes.
What was that?
2 to 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes, right, under the timer. Okay. I get to experience what I do to students all the time now then. So yeah, my name's Wendy Lowe and I teach in the medical school, and my role is teaching medical sociology. So I'm really caught in that kind of liminal zone between being a health professional, which I used to be, and trying to understand the context in which we all work. And sometimes I really need to dive deeply in order to try and understand what's going on and to name things. So this picture for me was a way of processing this experience, and I drew on inspiration from other artists for this because I was so struck by what they'd done. And it's a combination of sort of the sea and the layers that we have to work with and through, and also the idea of the selkie and the seal folk, and how in the picture is a lot of movement. It's a continual kind of movement between the social and the individual, and finding our ways through that. And so I kind of emphasize the selkie because of the change in consciousness that I feel I'm constantly juggling between medical practice. I'm not a medical doctor, but healthcare practice and sociology and understanding the context, and just kind of surviving through that as well. So that's what that picture is about for me.
Thank you, Wendy. And Wendy, would you like to either read your poem or speak of it? It's completely up to you which one you'd like to do.
A choice. Well, I think if I was going to speak about it, I would say the same thing that I've just said about the painting. Really, is that it's trying to encapsulate that sense of we, as you said in the beginning with your definition of what we're trying to do here, we're individuals in our small sea crafts and huddled against the inexplicable forces that we are exposed to constantly, particularly during the pandemic. But we're also pulled by this thread from the luminous moon, like something keeps us going. And there's this thread that we keep drawing from. And I go through the poem sort of describing that and going down into the deep to try and understand what's happening, and survey the night's catch of silvery fish and delicate strands of life, as this constant process of weaving and knitting together our understanding and making meaning and trying to make a difference that we're probably all trying to do in the world as well. So I think that's probably really what I would say about it. And it's, born out of uncertainty. I think trying to straddle different disciplines and knit them together is such a challenge, and it's a very uncertain process as well. So being able to bear with that is helpful. It's not always comfortable, but it's helpful.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Wendy. And Wendy's reminded us very nicely that each issue of Consilience has a theme, and this came out of the uncertainty issue. So I would invite everyone to go to the exhibition and to read Wendy's poem and to listen to Wendy reading the poem as well, because it is very beautifully delivered. And I think it just accompanies the art piece so wonderfully with it as well. So thank you, Wendy. If everyone, feel free to show your appreciation by clicking on the little button at your thing saying hand claps or do a wave or whatever you want to do. But Wendy, thank you very much for that. So I'm just gonna go on to the next piece now. And Steve, if Steve Smart's there, I wonder if Steve could just speak a little bit about his piece, please.
This is one of a series of digital montages that I made, combining images of professional dancers. I worked for some years photographing professional dancers at one point in my career, with various scientific images, but many of which were about imaging processes within the human body. This particular one is an image of an early version of an EEG, an electroencephalogram. The various numbers down the left-hand side are indicative of the electrode positions, which are shown in the kind of schematic at top left. And you can see that there are differences in the trace when the participant's been asked to open his eyes and close his eyes. I think there were other things in my mind as well about this. I like the idea that this is trying to image thought, which is ultimately, I think, always will prove very unknowable, but which is an interesting thing to address. And also, when I made this image, the dancer in this image, whose name is Aled Evans, his expression and even things about his pose to me suggested someone who was slightly ill at ease and distrustful of what was happening. And at the back of my mind in making this image also was the fact that EEG type technologies have been variously used over time to try and make lie detectors, most of which has been kind of largely debunked as a process as being highly unreliable, but is still used by some governments. So I liked the fact that he looked somewhat untrusting and suspicious, and of course he's coinciding with the middle part of this trace in that he has his eyes open. But that itself is it's an evocative statement.
Thank you very much, Steve. So we've paired this with a piece from Jane Musafira. Jane, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Would you? It's completely up to you. You can either speak about the poem, you can read the poem, whatever you would like to do.
I think I'll just speak on the poem because
do.
I want to give people the time to kind of digest it on their own. And so the piece is called Head Pressure, and it's based on two different possible meanings of that term. One is physical head pressure, where your sinuses get swollen and it feels very uncomfortable, and so you end up slowing down. But in the physics and engineering realm, head pressure is the pressure that drives liquids and gases to flow. And so we have these two ideas of something that's slowing you down versus something that is pushing you forward. And so I was trying to play with those two competing ideas back and forth as the speaker is struggling between staying where they are versus moving forward with their life. And one of the things that I was trying to do with this is to represent that not just with the words, but also where they are. And so pay attention to what phrases are elongated in their spacing, what things are on the right side of the page and what are on the left. And how does that inform how you interpret what the speaker is thinking?
That's fantastic. Thanks, Jen. It's a really beautiful piece. As the person who puts the actual website together, it was somewhat of a headache getting the layout exactly right, but it was definitely worth the headache. And you'll see that we've paired a art piece with a poem. Louise has done this, and we've had a bit of a discussion about it. And we don't necessarily want to reveal our thinking, but if you want to if you want to message us, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but hopefully you'll see where there's connections and you'll make your own connections there in the process as well. So just gonna step away from that artwork then. I'm just gonna move around the room, and we're gonna go to our next piece, which is over here. So Diana, is Diana here, Louise, or are you going to be reading a piece on behalf of Diana?
There's someone called Daya on the call, so that might be her. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm prepared to present on her behalf.
Okay, we'll just double check. Diana, are you here? No, okay, Louise, I guess if you can present on Diana's behalf, and then I can read the poem on her behalf as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, that works. So I'll try and do Diana's piece justice. A beautiful piece that was very, very different from what we had received before that.
Hold on a second, sorry. I think Diana is here actually. I think we just need to find her to unmute her. Sorry, Diana, so we will, yeah, give us a second. We will find you rapidly. Here we go, here we go. I'm asking to unmute now, so you should be okay.
Hi, hello.
There we go.
Hi, sorry about it.
Perfect.
Thanks.
No, don't apologize.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Diana, and yes, I'm a PhD student at the University of Cambridge, and my project is basically focusing on looking at the immune response to virus infections, which is quite topical for the current times. So basically, I've always had a passion for combining science and art and just trying to explain science through a different lens, through a more creative angle. And in this piece, I've tried to create a model of herpes virus, which is a virus that I'm actually studying and doing for and looking into it during my PhD project. And basically in it, I've used felt paper and pom-poms to create the structure. I've been doing before felt paper flowers, and this is actually how I got inspired, as their structure in a way just reminded me of the structure of these simple yet complicated organisms that do a lot, and their structure actually allows them to serve their natural purpose. And so yes, basically with this, I've tried to show the complex and symmetrical structure of a small and invisible to the naked eye organism that serves its purpose. And as you can see here, the different colors moving from the middle to the outside represent the different structures of the piece and of the virus itself. So in the middle is the core component, the main component of the virus, which stores all the genetic information. And that's the nucleic acid. And then all the different colored layers outside of it are basically wrapping this genetic information, and they are all composed of protein. And the sticky bits on the outside, as you see, that I've created with pom-poms, are actually the proteins that help the virus get into the cell of into our cells, into the human body.
Fantastic, thank you, Diana. And if we go to the poem as well, which you've also written to accompany this, do you want to read the poem? Do you want to speak about the poem? Which would you prefer to do?
I think I would like to read the poem, if that's okay.
Of course.
Yes, it's again linked to what I study. So I look at the immune response and the immune system, which inspired me also to write this. So okay, let me read it. So the title of the poem is Our Guardian Immunity. Let us tell you more about the immunity, which acts as our own body security. It stops the entrance of germs, bugs, and all sorts of bees, whose main aim is to cause harm and promote disease. Does this mean that we don't get ill ever? No, some of the bad guys can be sneaky and clever. They enter the body and can stay there forever, while others might fight and commit a serious crime, but our immunity will kick them out in no time. Neutrophils and macrophages are the first to contact, in the event of such a dangerous attack. If they're not able to handle the enemy, the dendritic cell messenger calls the T and B cell family. With cytokines and antibodies, they're heavily armed, hence they're the higher defense guard. These immune cells can remember whom they've met, as T and B cells have a long-term memory set. Thus, if the same intruder comes in again, it won't stand a chance in the microbe immunity game. But wait, you're right, that's how the vaccine works, which protects us from dangerous bugs. And so we hope you've enjoyed learning about the immunity. With love from the science community. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Diana.
Thank you.
No, and again, thank you for creating a specific poem for this beautiful art piece as well, which is greatly appreciated. I would be clicking my hand claps, but I'm trying to monitor about 5 different things at once, and I'm terrible at multitasking. So just assume that I've given everyone a very well done hand clap. So Louise has just said a good thing as well on the chat. Please do feel free to drop in comments and questions on the chat. Artists and poets, feel free to answer those as we go. And we can also pick up some questions at the end if we've got some time as well. So please do feel free to use the chat as we go. So we're going to move on to our next pairing now. And here we have the portrait of I'm really bad at pronouncing any scientific word, which is terrible for allegedly an expert in science communication. But a portrait of a Purkinje cell by Hannah Warming. So, Louise, is Hannah here, or are you going to be reading a statement on Hannah's behalf?
Hannah wasn't sure she would be able to make it, and I don't see her here. If you're here, okay, Hannah, let us know in the chat. But otherwise, I can present this piece on her behalf. Okay, I'll start presenting, and if Hannah's here, then please let me know in the chat. So Hannah Warming is a PhD student in the UK, and she studies stroke and dementia. And she took inspiration from what she studies to make this piece. So this piece is an embroidery, and it shows a Purkinje cell. I'm so sorry also for distorting this word. And that's a type of brain cell that controls learning and movement. They can be found in the cerebellum, a region at the base of the brain, which connects to the spinal cord. They are very tiny, with the cell body measuring just 0.08 millimeters across. You would only see the cells as they look in the photo using a high-resolution microscope, and discover their beautiful intricate nets of dendrites, the branches that receive information from surrounding cells. The texture of the threads captures the fiber-like nature of the cell's features, with more than 8 meters of thread condensed into just 6 inches of fabric. Purkinje dendrites are so complex that they can communicate with hundreds of thousands of cells at once, integrating these many signals to enable high control over our movements. And then Hannah writes that her Purkinje cells helped her to fine-tune her hand movements to create this piece that you can see.
Thank you, Louise. That's such a beautiful circle, I think, as well. And the poem that we've chosen to pair with this is Test Drive with a Biohacker by Julian Bishop. Again, is Julian here? And if not, okay, I will read Julian's poem on their behalf. So this is Test Drive with a Biohacker. Imagine engineering the wheels out of a car, removing the thrust, ability to brake, to liberate the body from oily dependence on love. I fine-tune my engine performance with additives, attain a maximum velocity of 70 a day. The sleek finish comes from hormone top-ups, an estrogen blocker added for extra horsepower, steroids, precautionary antidepressants. While the ignition is off, a smart Aura ring tracks every twitch. I calibrate thermal efficiency by implants under a bonnet of subcutaneous fat. Ketogenic technology gives me fuel economy, juice injected just once a day, 3 times a week. I run on empty. Love is just a lay-by on the journey to immortality. My heart needs no kiss to tick over. What drives me is knowing nothing inside will ever break. So round of applause for Julian Bishop there, less so for the reading. And again, in the actual exhibition, if you click on the little information, we've actually got some information about the poet, about the science that it's inspired by, or about the art piece as well. And then also a little bit about the materials that make up the piece in this instance. So moving on to our next pairing. We're going to start off with Renaissance by Brian Keeley. And Louise, is Brian here, or are you going to be reading? Brian's here. Okay,
I asked him to unmute himself. So he should be joining us.
Yeah,
Thank
hi
you.
there.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, how you doing?
Take it away, Brian, please tell us.
Okay, so the piece Renaissance I made at the end of 2016, and it's obviously the main image is the iconic Vitruvian Man symbol, as you can doubtless recognize. It may not be clear from the image, but the piece was created using MRI scans of my own body, and the image is life size. So the involved scanning all the different parts of my body in sections, and then putting them together using using Photoshop and so on to create the full image. Because obviously you can't scan a full body in an MRI machine. You can only do a little bit at a time. So, excuse me. So it's full size, and it's just over 2 meters 40 by 2 meters 40, and it's in 3 panels. And if you look closely, you can see the vertical lines down, which make up the panels, so that it can be transported and so on. And around the figure is all of the silver and gold that you can see. They are the empty packets of medication which I take in 1 year. And the reason I take all that medication is as a protection against against organ rejection, because in 2013 I had a heart transplant, and so the idea of that kind of protection, the preciousness, the silver and the gold being a protective shield, if you like, is one of the things which that I combined these two ideas, and and I wanted to do something using my scans. Now these scans I got done, I very kindly got persuaded the University of Aberdeen's medical imaging department to allow me to use their MRI scanner. I didn't use it myself, obviously, but they facilitated the process, which was quite unique for them, because not being clinical scans, it was a bit of a challenge, because normally that's not something which they would do. Although I get an MRI scan and other X-rays and scans regularly as part of my ongoing clinical monitoring. So I'm very familiar with the process of MRI scans, and the idea of it came about really because in a consultation with my cardiologist after one of my scans, he said, "Yeah, it's all clear. It's all we're looking at your cardiac function and so on, and it's all good." And I said, "Well, how do you know that?" And he turned his computer screen round and showed me a moving image of my heart beating. And he actually pointed to where you can see where the heart is stitched around the aorta and the heart is beating virtually in real time. And that kind of blew my mind. And that was what really inspired me to use the idea of looking inside the human body, which we don't normally see. We don't normally pay any attention to it, and we don't not see what it looks like. I had paid no attention to my own heart until I suffered a massive heart attack, spent 3.5 months in intensive care before having a transplant. So that was really the inspiration. This was and after 2 years, after 2 years post-transplant, I started to save all of the medication packets, the empty packets, and without really knowing what I was going to do with them. But I just saw they were piling up, and it seemed a shame to throw them away. And it was a daily reminder. So of all the medication packets, there's, I think at that time on this piece, there are 7,600 or 300 or something different items of medication which I would take in a whole year, and it seemed natural that was that was a use to I wanted to incorporate them in some kind of artwork. And the two things about the medication, which is essential for life. I couldn't survive more than a few days without this medication. And the idea of looking inside the body to learn more about and think about more about what we are on the inside, those two things came together and ended up as this massive piece. Thank you.
And I know, and we're delighted that you did keep all the packaging, because I think that it's such an arresting piece. And the poem that we've paired that with is called "In the Absence of Cures" by Abigail Flint. And I think Abigail is here. Abigail, when you come through, you can either read the poem or you can talk about the poem, whichever you'd prefer to do.
I think I'll read the poem if that's okay, Sam.
Of course it is, Abigail.
Yeah, lovely. So, but just to say how thrilled I am that my poem's in this exhibition, and also paired with Brian's absolutely breathtaking artwork. It's really stunning. And my poem deals with people's behaviour when faced with the uncertainty of disease, and tries to make a connection to how that kind of behaviour existed in the past as well. In the absence of cures. In the absence of cures, we turn to charms, vials of cleansing elixir, veils to cover our mouths. We practice a collective magical geometry of distance, the ritual washing of hands. We speak spells and benedictions to one another across streets, across continents. We attend to daily numerologies, tallies and charts, awaiting equilibrium. We trust in art and law, the extraordinary alchemy of medicine. Some petition their gods to allow us to endure, these almost beings, forged of fragments of our ancestors, or something primal, older than the gods themselves. At night, I dream of a contract, a bargaining of lives in a shared, forgotten tongue. I place a petri dish between grandmother stones, crowned with a wreath of sage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abigail. And it's such a beautiful piece. And I love the spelling of magical in that poem. And I'm ashamed to say how much of a rabbit hole that sent me down in looking for what that word meant and how it was spelt and stuff. And yeah, it's a really beautiful piece. And I think it works incredibly well with Brian's as well. So again, just a reminder to everyone that the Louise might share again, if that's okay, in the chat, the link to the exhibition for some of the latecomers. And if you follow this link, it's now publishable. You can go in, you can check out the exhibition for yourself. It's completely free. You can read the bios of the poets and the artists, find a bit more about them and about the science that's inspired them to do so as well. So we're going to go on to the next pairing now. And in the first instance, we've got a image by Amy Hartnell. And Louise, is Amy here, or are you going to be speaking on behalf of Amy?
Amy said she couldn't make it, but please, Amy, if you're here, let us know in the chat so that we can unmute you. Otherwise, I will present Amy's piece. So Amy Hartnell teaches chemistry at the Rye St. Anthony School in Oxford, and she also loves doing painting and poetry, and she loves that as much as the periodic table, she says. So about this piece, this is a piece of Dorothy Crowfoot Hodgkin, and she was the first British woman to win a Nobel Prize for chemistry for her pioneering work in crystallography. This enabled her to map the structures of penicillin, insulin, and vitamin B12, which some of these may ring a bell. I have tremendous admiration. Sorry, I'm speaking on her behalf. So Amy has tremendous admiration for her brilliance, generosity of spirit, and tireless hard work, particularly in the face of the disability and pain inflicted on her by rheumatoid arthritis at a young age. So when Amy's school's chemistry lab was named after her, she wanted to create a portrait of her to help their pupils relate to the scientists behind the name. The pencil drawing is an interpretation of a photograph of her in 1937. And Amy hopes that she would have approved of the use of graphite with its beautifully regular hexagonal crystal structure as a medium for this piece.
Thank you, Louise. And I'm sure we can all agree it's a really beautiful image. I think that captures Dorothy incredibly well. So the piece that we've paired this with is Vinblastine by Stephen Wren. And I think I saw Stephen earlier. So Stephen, I'm going to invite you to either read the piece or speak of the piece, whichever you'd prefer to do.
Hi, Sam. Yeah, I'm happy to read it, if that's okay.
Of course, Stephen, we'd love to hear.
Yeah. First of all, thank you to Sam and the whole team for inviting me to be part of the exhibition. It's absolutely amazing, and to be paired alongside Amy's beautiful picture is a real honour, I must say. I've long admired Dorothy Hodgkin as a practicing chemist myself. I'm an academic who hunts drugs and looks for new medicines in my research, and I'm very interested in natural products and how we can use them and develop them as medicines. And Dorothy Hodgkin really helped advance the field of medicine. And in Vinblastine, I've tried to describe how a natural compound is synthesized in nature. And hopefully you'll see that it's actually a very important compound. It's used as an anti-cancer agent. Vinblastine. I'm found in the leaves of Madagascar periwinkle, the biosynthesis factory place surrounding me adopts the name Bright Eyes. My name is Vinblastine, interrupting cell division to retard lymphoma is my practical devotee. Others that I despise include bladder cancer, disorders of the brain and lung. Enzymes help to produce my molecular parents, see? They fuss and synthesize. Tapasonine terpene and a fine indole alkaloid are my proud precursors. Their clever connections are free. Joining up is their prize. I am their drug output. My chemotherapy purpose is worth shouting about. My actions speak to the needy. Let your healthy cells rise.
Thank you, Stephen. Beautifully read, and also lovely to hear a chemist pronounce the words properly that I would have just butchered. So thank you so much for that. And that's really nice to hear about your own inspiration from Dorothy as well. We didn't know that when we paired the two. So obviously, Louise, we'd read something in the ether there, which is very nice. Thank you, Stephen. So the next pairing now is from Michael Leach. Michael is here. I think it's very early when Michael is. So a special thank you, Michael, for joining us. And I wonder, Michael, if you might like to talk about the piece, and then we can chat about the poem afterwards as well.
Sounds good, thanks, Sam. And thanks to Louise. So this artwork was inspired by my background in the health sciences and an excerpt from a health-related poem. I originally trained as a pharmacist, and after that I completed further studies in biostatistics, health informatics, and pharmacoepidemiology, the population level study of drug utilization and effects. And I've since worked as a statistician in a hospital setting and a lecturer at Monash University School of Rural Health. My PhD involved using linked data to investigate drug safety, specifically psychoactive medications and the risk of hip fracture among older people. And an example of a psychoactive medication is the benzodiazepine oxazepam. And while oxazepam treatment has been shown to help people relax and sleep at night, it can cause side effects like unwanted daytime sedation in some individuals. And such side effects likely explain why benzodiazepines increase the risk of falls and fractures, especially in older, frailer people. The hormone melatonin is sometimes used to manage insomnia too. Melatonin use in insomnia is, however, supported by relatively little scientific evidence. And this composite photograph depicts a person in a haze induced by insomnia and adverse drug effects. The structural formula of the potentially harmful benzodiazepine oxazepam is shown there on the left, while that of the potentially ineffective melatonin is shown on the right. These structural formulae appear to be floating surreally around the subject's head, in line with the consilient perspective of both pharmacist and artist. I created this artwork in response to Marie B. Lee Donnie's poem, My Inner Creature Solitude, specifically 3 lines. Contrary to medics' advice, I don't need Seropax or melatonin. Not all creatures function equally. These lines reflect crucial concepts in medicine, inter-patient variability, and person-centered care. Individuals respond differently to medications and should have a say in their healthcare. The subject of the poem found melatonin and oxazepam, which is dispensed under the brand name Seropax, to be ineffective and or harmful. In response to the patient's response, the physician in question could consider dosage adjustments or other options, including sleep hygiene recommendations. When creating the composite photograph shown here, I endeavored to highlight the person's unfavorable lived experience of pharmacological mismanagement through the floating chemicals, a dramatic color scheme, faded human silhouette, and that hand reaching out as if to say, stop, help, or I'm trapped. And before appearing in Consilience, this artwork was exhibited here in Bendigo, Australia as part of a My Health Story exhibition and a collab exhibition at Right on the Fringe Festival in 2019. And I'm very excited that it's now in Consilience and in reaching an international audience.
Thank you so much, Michael. So I wonder then if we might also hear you talk about the poem, which you've also written. And again, you can either read the poem or speak of it, or a combination of the two, Michael, whichever you'd prefer.
I might go the combo, Sam. It's a short one. So yeah, given my background in health data, issues around data security are often on my mind. And when I saw Consilience's call for submissions of poetry about connectivity, I recognized an opportunity to address the complexity of cloud computing through verse. In cloud computing, IT resources such as apps are shared among organizations and individuals via energy waves traversing a computer network. And while this cloud offers benefits such as mass data storage, it's limited by problems like vulnerability to cyber attacks on data, including sensitive health data. And my poem endeavors to convey such information. In terms of poetry type, I opted for the rondeau, a French poetic form involving rhyme and repetition, which may aid science communication. While this song-like form has conventionally been used to address light subject matter, people such as Canadian physician and poet Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae have defied convention by using the rondo form for serious subjects. McCrae's poignant 1915 war poem, In Flanders Fields, my favourite one, Rondo, helped inspire this science-related rondo, The Cloud. So I'll just quickly share both poems with you. In Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amidst the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. And now my rondo, The Cloud. Up in the cloud, energy flows. Here and there, it comes and it goes, between new devices and apps to fill corporate service gaps and remedy mass storage woes. This amorphous net sometimes goes down, leaving us all in the throes of reacting to thunder claps. Up in the cloud, privacy keeps us on our toes. Those tireless hackers always pose threats to all us chapettes and chaps with data stored beyond our laps. Firewalls rise as a sunburst glows up in the cloud. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It was beautifully read, and I wasn't expecting any war poetry this evening, so that was great to hear as well. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Sam.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you. So I believe that takes us to the end of the exhibition, the end of the formal exhibition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and come off that, which is quite nice, so I can see everybody's face again. And we've got a little bit of time if anybody wants to drop any questions into the chat, and we'll see if we can pick them up. But at the same time, I'm always a big believer, if things have gone well, there's no need dragging them out. And I think that, you know, tonight or this morning or this afternoon or this lunchtime went extremely well. It was really beautiful and poignant, I think, to hear some of those pairings. And just a few pieces of housekeeping, if I may be so bold. So again, I'm just going to remind you all of our website. Please do check us out here. Just a very quick note to say that we are a team now of about 50 volunteers from 6 continents. We're just missing Antarctica. We try to be as open and as inclusive as possible. So anybody that wants to join us as a reviewer, as an editor, as a consultant, as a web designer, as anything, you're welcome to join us. Please do so. Just drop us an email and we can work something out. I'm indebted to everybody at the Journal who gives so much of their spare time to do all of this. We're hopefully eventually going to work on some kind of model so that people can get remunerated. In the meantime, if you want to, you could look at our Ko-Fi page and think about maybe leaving us a coffee, and that'll help to pay for the website costs, etc. But you're under no, you don't have to do that. We'll always be something that's free for people to consume and free for people to publish in, and we'll make that the case. And if you want to help support us, great, but if not, don't worry about it. And then also just to remind you, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we're also on Facebook. And we've got a really nice Facebook group that I know that a lot of you are on. If you are part of the Zuckerberg dollar, then, you know, please do come and join us. We try to make it an inclusive space. You're very welcome to come and talk to us, promote your events, and just join us more generally. I just want to say a really big thank you to all of the poets and all of the artists who contributed work to this exhibition and who came from literally all over the world and all over the different time zones to be with us tonight. To hear about your pieces and to hear them read and described was really touching, and for me certainly adds more poignancy to the actual pieces themselves. I'd like to thank everyone that contributes to the journal, but I'd like everyone to say a huge thank you to Louise, because Louise is really the person who's made tonight happen. I'm just a face. Louise has organized everything, done all the pairings, made it amazing, and she gives so much to Consiliate. She's such a wonderful, and she's a wonderful human being as well. So thank you very much, Louise, for everything you've done this evening.
Thank you so
have you're very welcome. We have recorded this, so we're going to make it available on our YouTube site as well, so people can share it as well. And hopefully we're going to have another exhibition later in the year. So I just wanted to say to everybody, thank you so much for joining us, for your interesting chat, for the poets, for the artists, and just for being great human beings. I think that art and science and poetry are great ways of bringing people together, which is really what we need as a global community at the moment.